The American legal system is a human meat grinder incapable of giving every accused person a fair and speedy trial. This is why over 90% of cases are never tried in court, the defendants electing to plead guilty for fear of stiffer sentences if they go to court. If every accused person demanded a trial, the legal system would grind to a halt. There would not be enough judges, lawyers, and courtrooms to try the deluge of cases. It would be forced to eliminate our constitutional rights to a trial of our peers or to eliminate superfluous laws. Michelle Alexander in the New York Times wrote, "In the race to incarcerate, politicians champion stiff sentences for nearly all crimes, including harsh mandatory minimum sentences and three strikes laws. The result is a dramatic power shift from judges to prosecutors." The Supreme Court ruled in 1978 that threatening someone with life imprisonment for a minor crime in an effort to induce him to forfeit a jury trial did not violate his Sixth Amendment right to trial. 13 years later, in Harmelin v. Michigan, the court ruled that life imprisonment for a first-time drug offense did not violate the Eighth Amendment's ban on cruel and unusual punishment. By coercing arrested persons to plead guilty, government officials can bypass the courtroom and deposit the accused directly into the massive prison industrial complex. According to 2009 Pew figures, 1 out of every 31 Americans are under corrections custody through parole, probation, or incarceration. The United States of America, the land of the free and the home of the brave, has the largest prison population of any nation and the largest in terms of percentage in the developed world. Approximately 60% of the inmates in federal prison are incarcerated for nonviolent, quote-unquote, crimes, mostly drug-related offenses. According to the National Institute on Drug Abuse, as many as 2/3 of all people in treatment for drug abuse report that they were physically, sexually, or emotionally abused during childhood. I find the drug war particularly repugnant because a nonviolent, quote-unquote, crime is used to justify violence against adults who are often self-medicating childhood traumas. Instead of helping these people who are hurting on the inside and then hurting themselves with drugs, the justice system kidnaps them and locks them up, where they are subjected to more abuse in the form of prison rape, assault, and murder. And, to add insult to injury, we are forced to pay for it all with taxation and inflation. Maybe you're thinking, it's unfortunate that these laws scoop up the well-meaning and mostly law-abiding persons on occasion, but the legal system is imperative to our safety and security. That thin blue line is all that stands between polite society and chaos. Since we've been so successful at arresting 1/3 of our citizens, the bulk for nonviolent offenses, we must be doing a great job on violent crimes like rape, right? Steve Riley in the USA Today wrote, "In the most detailed nationwide inventory of untested rape kits ever, USA Today and journalists from more than 75 Gannett newspapers and TV stations have found at least 70,000 neglected kits in an open records campaign covering 1,000 plus police agencies and counting. Despite its scope, the agency-by-agency count covers a fraction of the nation's 18,000 police departments, suggesting the number of untested rape kits reaches into the hundreds of thousands. The kits contain forensic evidence collected from survivors in a painstaking and invasive process that can last 4 to 6 hours. Testing can yield DNA evidence that helps identify suspects to bolster prosecutions and, in some cases, exonerate the wrongly accused. The records reveal widespread inconsistency in how police handle rape evidence from agency to agency and even officer to officer. Some departments test every rape kit. Others send as few as 2 in 10 to crime labs. In addition to rape kits not being processed, many rape complaints are simply not prosecuted. According to research funded by the Department of Justice, only between 8 and 37% of rape complaints ever lead to prosecution. Prosecuting attorneys concerned with their conviction rate are often not interested in taking rape cases as they are notoriously difficult to win. When a crime occurs, in a majority of the times, law enforcement is not there to intervene. I'm not being critical with that statement. With between 2.4 and 3.5 officers per 1,000 inhabitants nationwide, it is simply not possible. Law enforcement mostly responds after the crime has occurred. The prevailing propaganda is that law enforcement will be there for your protection in the event of a violent crime, but in reality, we are much better off seeing to our own protection through preventative and proactive means. Most go through life blindly believing the propaganda and not ever considering personal and home protection. What about when law enforcement is on the scene of a crime in progress? I believe most police officers would intervene. I also believe some might not intervene, even if you're being stabbed to death, and the officers would not be prosecuted for negligence. Joseph Lozito learned that the hard way, as he was stabbed 7 times on a New York subway train as 2 police officers were only a few feet away in the locked operator's booth. After Mr. Lozito subdued the madman, one officer emerged from hiding. New York City lawyer David Santoro said in reference to Mr. Lozito and the neglect of the officers to intervene, "Under well-established law, the police are not liable for such incidents." Warren v. the District of Columbia is a legal precedent often cited that says that the police have no duty to protect the public. The court explained that the duty to provide public services is owed to the public at large, and absent a special relationship between the police and an individual, no specific legal duty exists. From a very young age, we are taught the virtue of obeying those in authority. If you follow the rules, you're good. If you don't, you're bad and deserve to be punished. We are taught the virtues that abiding by the law is good and that breaking the law is bad. We are taught that the law equals morality. We are taught that the police are there to help us, to protect us. The police do not have to protect us. Sometimes they do, but they are under no obligation to do so. They are there to enforce laws written by politicians. Sometimes those laws align with moral principles, but often they do not. Slavery was abolished in the United States in 1865 with the 13th Amendment. Was slavery moral in 1864? What about drinking alcohol? Was it immoral during Prohibition, but now it's moral? Was it moral for law enforcement to cage people for having a beer? Consider the old lady jailed for her brown lawn. Is it moral to take a person from her home, lock her up in a cage, and take her money in the form of a fine for not watering her grass? Is it moral to arrest someone for selling raw milk? Is it moral to force people to pay fines or sit in jail cells for nonviolent crimes without complaining victims? As a citizen of this country, I am far more afraid of violence from the justice system than I am from another citizen. I have a 1 in 3 chance that I will be arrested and subjected to violence in the form of fines and/or jail time. I do not fear the random criminal. I can defend myself against the criminal, but I cannot defend myself against law enforcement. If I do, I will be given a harsher punishment. I know what you're thinking. Don't break the law if you don't want to be arrested. That's easier said than done. There is no single person who knows all the laws, and the average American is committing 3 felonies a day.